I think it's exhaustion. I think it's people are exhausted on waiting for something to happen to change things to make it better to buy, because, realistically, it's not highly likely that's going to happen in the short term. So homes are taking longer to sell in general everywhere in South Florida. I mean, and I think the nation right now. I mean, it's, the whole market has kind of slowed globally, but, there are some neighborhoods that tend to sell a little better than others. There's premier, like Wellington, Palm Beach Gardens, Boca Raton. They're always going to have, a little more traffic and action because people move to come to those specific, towns or zip codes or whatever you want to call it. It's tough to pinpoint though, because there's actually some individual neighborhoods that tend to be trending, and it gets really granular, and especially here in the Palm Beach County market. The Florida Keys market is a little bit different, and the Florida Keys market also is a completely different market than what you would call a mainland market, because it's a secondary home market in many cases, or it's we just really want to be there and we can afford to be there market, versus, hey, we're coming down there because we want to put our kids in Wellington schools, or their job is bringing them here and stuff like that. Now, there are people that do move for those reasons to the Keys, but in general, it's a little bit different market. But here in the, let's say, the Palm Beach County market, and we're even seeing this in St. Lucie, Martin, all the areas that my team covers, but there, you could have one neighborhood that's right next to another neighborhood, and they're trending a little bit differently. And a lot of that might be based on amenities that they offer, or if it's HOA community to HOA community, it could be the cost ratios. So it's difficult to pinpoint stuff like that. But I would say in general terms, it's taking, well, I know for sure it's taking longer in the South Florida markets. Palm Beach County, the median days on market just jumped up to 79. That's median. Back in the COVID heyday, we were median like 6-7 days on the market. I mean, it was crazy. Then, a normal market is going to be somewhere in the 60-day range, or a balanced market, right? And we've definitely moved into a buyer's market. And again, we didn't really see any buyer activity for months. And this weekend was kind of crazy on that context. It wasn't insane like the COVID market, but there were buyers out looking at houses, and we put a couple of houses under contract this weekend. So I'm hopeful that that's an emerging trend. Again, I don't know exactly what's driving that. The rates didn't change. I think it's exhaustion. I think it's people are exhausted on waiting for something to happen to change things to make it better to buy, because realistically, it's not highly likely that's going to happen in the short term. The rates, honestly, the rates went up a little bit because, the bond market is what sets the rates, right? A lot of people try to correlate the Fed rate specifically with mortgage rates. Tangentially, they are together, but specifically, mortgage rates are set more by the bond market, which isn't directly related to the Fed, okay? The Fed affects your credit card payments directly, car payments directly, and a lot of different things like that directly. But mortgage rates are a little bit, they're more of a commodities market. And again, that didn't change enough to make a difference. So I think that, like, a lot of people after this last non-change that the Fed did, in their perception, I was like, oh, well, whatever, let's just do it, right? So we'll see. It's South Florida. South Florida is always going to be South Florida. It's always going to be desirable. So I don't expect we'll have to wait much longer for this to kind of turn around. And if this weekend's any indication, it could be sooner rather than later.